Great. Welcome back, everybody. It's my great pleasure to introduce Melanie Lency, who's the founder and chief fund maker at Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs, which is a great. You just heard a little bit about it from Lisa, but you'll hear a lot more about the importance of storytelling to building and maintaining your entrepreneurial ecosystem. And yeah, Melanie, I'll hand it over to you.
Thank you, Sean. Hey, everyone. I am just super excited to be here to share my story with Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs and some more. And simply have to start out. I think it's a theme. A lot of people here are so grateful for Sean and the help, and it's just wonderful to hear it. So I'm starting out with a shout out to Sean O'Shea. Once I figure out how to get to my next slide, because my clicker is not working. There it is. Okay. So many of you have also had the pleasure of working with Sean, and I just have to say that I just consider myself insanely lucky to work with him and for him. He is just tops in my book. To me, he's just absolutely brilliant, but he's one of the most grounded, modest people. And I just seriously, he's changed the absolute trajectory of my career. And so here's a little side story. So I was lucky enough to meet Sean. I went to a meetup here in Santa Fe. I had been in Santa Fe just over 2 months. I didn't know a single person when I moved here. Sat down at that meetup and Sean was there along with some other people that are still friends today. And I just kept seeing him at other networking events I was going to. I was just trying to get out and meet some new people. And so Sean eventually ended up telling me about the Santa Fe Business Incubator's Runway program, which was a way to vet a business idea. And I had one. And so while working with Sean, who was at the Santa Fe Business Incubator at the time, and the Santa Fe Business Incubator's program were absolutely amazing, I decided not to go on with my business idea, which was building a cannoli nacho empire. Though I do have the cannoli nacho to thank for bringing me to Sean and the incubator. So thank you again, Sean. Rest in peace, the cannoli nacho. And really, though, I'm going to start out today with a quote, one of my favorites. So, people will forget what you say, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. So in our work, we're just so often forced to focus on data-driven results that we forget how important how we make people feel is. Though I know that New Mexico Main Street is every executive director I worked with is just absolutely so caring, and they have so much passion, so they get this feeling thing. But again, we so often do have to force or focus on numbers. And I think that part of the reason why with Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs, since I started it organically and on my own, I wasn't thinking at numbers at the time. Really, all I had at the time in mind was fun. And that may have contributed to some of its magic. So I started these entrepreneur storytime events here in Santa Fe, a city of about 84,000, back in January 2018. And I'll just try to mention the populations too to give you some context. So I'd been in Santa Fe for just over a year at that point. And since the cannoli nacho wasn't going to be my next big thing, I was bopping around to networking events to meet new people, and also in the process of building a business that I had for 12 years. After building that up, I wanted out. So bopping around to these different networking events and was just absolutely blown away by all of the local entrepreneurial talent. And I was just fascinated by their stories. So we started Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs as a meetup group and a Facebook page and launched these monthly-ish 2-hour after business hour events so that I could share this experience with others. I figured if people liked it, they would come. And if not, I would just stop doing it. So 4 years later, Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs in Santa Fe has grown to more than 670 members on Meetup, and events consistently attended by 25 to 65 local fans of entrepreneurship, curious community members, and ecosystem players each month. And sure, we definitely started small, like 12, 15, 18 folks at our first few stories. But once we started to get a little buzz, that's when the city government officials, ecosystem partners, and entrepreneur program related personnel, like folks like you, started showing up and joining in the fun. So heck, the mayor even popped up at a few of our events last year. So each event now feels like a little like a party, but people are connecting and meeting and connecting in just a way that doesn't often happen in like an office or a conference room. So we're a free event. We don't charge admission. We don't pay for venues. We don't pay our local entrepreneurs, our storytellers to share. And without this, none of this would be possible. And we also don't even provide free food or drink. So like, what's our secret sauce? How have we been kicking ass at generating social capital when so many other event programs designed to do just this kind of end up fizzling out? So again, started organically. I was totally self-funding my time. And thanks to Sean, who was absolutely supportive of Kick-Ass from the very beginning. And he convinced Marie at the Santa Fe Business Incubator to pay the meetup platform fee. And at that time, I was just super grateful for the first year. But really, like, I just had nothing but fun in mind. Now we're considered a vital part of our local ecosystem, are sponsored by the city's Office of Economic Development and other ecosystem partners like Santa Fe Innovates, which a lot of you know about because they've grown so much, social enterprise business accelerator. Thank you, John. And so we're a pretty casual program, yet we do have very strict rule. May look like 3 rules, but it's 1. No sales pitches, no PowerPoint, just story, like Lisa said. So you see, I actually come from a background in storytelling. So that business that I was telling you about that I had for 12 years, that was me. I was writing resumes and LinkedIn profiles. I wrote clients' career packages. But really what it turned into for me was telling clients career stories, career storytelling. And so while that wasn't even really a thing at the time, after I presented to a room full of over 100 resume writers at the National Resume Writers Conference in Denver in 2015, I definitely noticed other resume writers were also changing their thinking and changing their marketing to reflect that. So why storytelling? Well, it really ties into what most who attend Kick-Ass Entrepreneur events don't realize. And some of this has been mentioned as well throughout the past couple of days, but there's just so much science behind why the story-based approach creates this fun, casual, bringing down the guard to inspire connections feel. And so I'm sure a lot of you also know about this, but 2 of my favorite books on the topic are Start with Story, The Entrepreneur's Guide to Using Story to Grow Your Business. And Lynn Graft is actually a Las Cruces native, the author of that book. And then there's The Storyteller's Secret. So they go crazy in depth about how research proves that our brains are more active when we hear stories, because story activates more parts of the brain than just numbers and statistics alone. It creates a higher probability of connection between the storyteller and their audience. So it's like this emotional bridge, and the brain remembers emotional components of an experience way better than any other aspect. So the same chemicals that are released when you eat chocolate, have sex, or do drugs, which I know nothing about, are released when you hear a story. We see ourselves in the storyteller's struggle. We empathize with their insecurities. We applaud their success because they bring it home. If they can overcome obstacles, so can we. If they can find help from right here within our community, so can we. And I've gotten to witness some serious magic happen as our entrepreneurs transform into people that their community, we all can relate to, want to help simply by sharing their stories. So what kind of magic might I be talking about? So after Madre Foods founder Caitlin shared the story of her struggle with finding affordable commercial kitchen space, the founder of Verde Foods cold pressed juice empire, Kelly, back when she was in Santa Fe, she not only offered Caitlin affordable commercial kitchen space that enabled her to expand her business operation, but she also opened up shelf space at Verde's storefront at the time for Madre's products. Following the sharing of her story, Squash Blossom owner Nina was approached by folks for the city's Office of Economic Development to enrich a panel at a food summit about sparking entrepreneurship in the food industry. And she added a fresh young voice to a convening attended by over 100 industry enthusiasts and was able to connect to some highly influential folks along the way. And so then, upon hearing within his story that Kareem, a father of 7 who fits in time to coach Little League and run his company IT Connect, that he was looking to expand, one of the city's Office of Economic Development employees introduced himself that night, and the next day connected Kareem with 2 of the city's business expansion subject matter experts to help school him on the LEADA program, which many of you know offers assistance to qualified expanding businesses. Parting Stone founder Justin was approached by an event attendee so moved by the story of how his grandfather's death inspired him to develop a process to transform cremated remains into those smooth, beautiful stones, completely disrupting the death industry, that she asked if he were seeking additional investors. And I know a lot of you, Parting Stone gets a lot of press, but if you don't know of them, definitely Google them. You may end up adding them to your will, as I have. And when Olivia, a newcomer to town, she came to a Storytime event, and during Schmooze time told me about her experience working with an accelerator in the past and her interest in becoming a mentor. I was able to introduce her that night to John, who at that point was just about to launch Santa Fe Innovates. So she not only became a mentor within the program, but she also ended up having a job within the program as well for a time. And then after sharing the story of Art Walk Santa Fe, female founder besties Alex and Mara, they were approached that night by a local attorney who was willing to provide pro bono assistance in setting up the structure of their new venture. And the venue manager, who stuck around to listen, was so impressed that she offered the duo to hold any or all of their upcoming art walks at Santa Fe Brewing Company. And this is an absolute win-win, especially since art walks, like now they've gotten this to where there's more than 30 emerging artists and more than 300 people are showing up when they do these events. It's awesome, but can be sometimes a challenge to find suitable space. And I know they've done it at Santa Fe Brewing Company, this location, a couple of times since then. So, you know, to economic development offices or some of the bigger offices, like the outcomes might not produce like the most impressive data, but I can tell you that to these entrepreneurs and the people pushing forward their dreams and supporting their families in our communities, like it just means something. And they were able to feel the love from our community. And by setting the stage for diverse entrepreneurs spanning all ages and stages and across industries, not just the flaming success stories, but some of the struggles as well, we get new folks joining in all the time to hear from that particular entrepreneur. And we've had ecosystem partners and random folks drive from as far away as Taos, Los Alamos, and Albuquerque. So that's up to an hour and a half away, just because they might want to hear that particular storyteller or just like the way our gatherings feel. Since the start, we've heard the stories behind 38 local businesses here in Santa Fe and supported 23 local restaurants and bars, those sweet establishments that have allowed us to hold our events there. And while we try to introduce our community in new places all the time with our events, we naturally repeated locations, especially since the pandemic, as outdoor patio spots, no matter how cold, have been a definite lifesaver. And people are still showing up. So we've had past storytellers also come back to share updates of their business as the years roll on, like Isla with Honeymoon Brewery, we have Eric with Zerb, Haj with Hang Time, because it's fun to follow along on their journey as well and learn something as they're going through the different stages and phases of their business. And I get it, like Santa Fe has some pretty impressive businesses, but we also like get to hear the stories from the founders of smaller companies. So not just like we've got those multi-million-dollar tech companies. Yeah, that's great too. But we also get like I love the fresh startup stories. Smaller, more niche businesses like the Ostrich Farm, food tour company, vegan skincare company, card shop, gluten-free bakery, macaroon shop, bookkeeper accounting service, fish jerky, local food delivery service, custom doggy doors, like the list goes on. So do we put these entrepreneur storytellers through some sort of training? Heck no, though some may look like it. in Santa Fe, totally like approach at random. If they've never been to a Storytime event before, they just get emailed a blurb and I give them a little chat, let them know like this is not a pitch. They don't need to wear a suit, just come as their most casual. No one showed up in sweats just yet. And it's this casual, easy breezy approach, takes the pressure off the entrepreneurs, makes them more willing to share, decreases their anxiety, and then it increases their ability to connect while they're sharing. This then increases the audience's likelihood of connecting on an emotional level. And remember, emotions inspire and motivate way more than facts and figures alone. So our business owners get a chance to be real, share what's worked for them, what hasn't. And we might even get to learn from them things like Elisa had said, how much money the bowling alley owner had left in his bank account when he got this thing started, or where the storyteller entrepreneur is originally from, what career they had before this, like how many kids or dogs or cats they have. I have two, that's Bubbles and that's Littles. And all of this, like it may sound irrelevant, but it's more the kind of stuff that just makes us relate, trust, empathize, and want to help. And we always ask what they could use help with at the stage that they're at right then and there. So our community gets to engage during Q&A time. And we not only start out with a half-hour schmoozing, as Lisa said, I do love the schmooze. So we pad in a half-hour schmoozing in the front, and then we have a half hour also padded in on the back end, as this is just what often when so much of the magic happens. And let's face it, as also previously mentioned by Lisa, holding these events after business hours and where adult beverages are sold definitely helps. When people can come for free, they're more than happy to follow our encouragement in supporting the bars and restaurants we meet at by opening their wallets and ordering some food and drink, because these events are almost just as much about giving our members a chance to check out, support, and connect with these businesses as well. And that's why we give the venue owner or manager a chance to share their 5-minute short story, if they're available and want to, before our featured entrepreneur storyteller begins. Say what you will, some love it, some don't. But Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs is a pretty cool and catchy name, which is probably why we become somewhat a gateway, it seems like, for newcomers seeking community, as we're easy to find on Meetup, Facebook, and Instagram. And we keep the same kick-ass vibe in the social media post. And a sweet benefit to ecosystem partners and folks like you is that gatherings like these end up serving as free advertising, for lack of a better term, for the accelerator programs, incubators, grant programs, funding sources, co-working space, and other miscellaneous programs, and people that naturally get mentioned as part of the entrepreneur story. And when so many of the folks representing those entities are right there in the room, people get to put a face to the name, and connections begin right then and there as schmooze time begins after the story ends, and people are just making beelines towards each other, towards the people that they want to meet, connect with, get to know, and help. And so thank you, Lisa, like loved what you had shared in your previous presentation. And so here now I'm gonna talk a little bit about that, because like, just thank you so much, Lisa, for your willingness to pilot this program in your wonderful Main Street community. And again, thank you, Sean, for making this connection. And like Clovis is a super cool town. It's about 39,000 population, I think, although someone like put in the chat, correct me if I'm wrong, and it's about 9 miles west of the Texas border. And I had like, I'd really just learned a ton over 4 years of doing events like these, like what worked, what didn't, what to look out for, all of these kinds of things. So it did make it a lot easier for me to have that. Like the pandemic gave me quite an opportunity for some downtime to put together that guide Lisa had mentioned. So all packaged up nice and fun to read, and it made it really easy to work through with Lisa through the 5 sections. It's broken down into 5 sections over Zoom. And so it was just like, it could have just been 5 Zoom sections. We actually liked each other a whole lot, so we did a lot more talking. But by doing this and doing some follow-up sessions and brainstorming sessions, we got onto like how to make modifications so it fits better for Lisa's capacity and her community. Like as she mentioned, I do 10 events per year here, so almost monthly, but 6 is going to be better for Lisa and Clovis. So since she has so much else on her plate. And as she had mentioned as well, their very first event, they'd officially started on Zoom. Love this. This was one of their screenshots that they had captured here in thick of the pandemic, but in person, like it was just fantastic to be able to learn. So we were in, I had went down to Clovis because I was just so excited, wanted to support Lisa, wanted to support Clovis Main Street, and hear the story from Hook's Bowling Alley, the owner, because he opened a bowling alley like right smack in the middle of it. So you're like, God, this guy's gotta be a little off, but he was just, like she said, absolutely fantastic. And I think actually the video had 830 views the last time I had checked it. I even watched it the next weekend after seeing him live in person. But one of the best parts about that night was that at one point, Lisa says to me, like, do you think we should live stream this on Facebook? Sorry, Lisa, that's my impression. Like, I'm not trying to do an impression, but you think we should live stream this on Facebook? And I was like, I wouldn't. Sounds like a lot of extra work. I was just thinking of trying to make it easier for, like, I wouldn't, but you know, if you really want to, and you know what, I'm glad she really wanted to, because that, like, again, that was a Thursday night. By the weekend, that video had hundreds of views, and it's still available to watch on Clovis's Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs, a Clovis Facebook page. So again, while we're working with Lisa, every step of the way has been nothing but a pleasure. It, of course, like she said, it hasn't gone all according to plan, just like things in Santa Fe don't always go all according to plan here either. So as she mentioned, Scott, who's behind her in that picture there, awesome board member. Well, yeah, he had other things he had to attend to. So he had to kind of back out, and this like just stalled the program a little bit. But it's just one more of the learning lessons and as to how to better adapt these for communities. So, and prevent this scenario in the future this way. And though it gave us a chance to revisit, the last time we talked wasn't too long ago, we got to go back to the guide, revisit. There's a section in there on sponsorships and partnerships. And because my sponsorship from the city of Santa Fe's Office of Economic Development is like, I am so grateful for it. And it allows them to have a presence in the community to be supporting these social capital generating events without having to put them on themselves. So it's absolutely a win-win. But we talked about how Lisa might be able to consider a similar sponsorship or partnership with another community player or a local company, even possibly to pitch in to do some of that. I've also been lucky enough to have the Richard P. Feynman Center for Innovation at LANL sponsor an event per year here in Santa Fe. And it's typically like, it's aligned with their mission. It's usually someone that's in tech, but also someone that's benefited from one of their programs or one of the programs they support, like the NMSBA. Yay, Julia Wise, there she is. And then, so the sponsor gets incorporated into the event announcement. A rep gets to stand up at the event, tell a little bit about the program, but most important, it really helps people to put a face to the program name. And that's really great at breaking down barriers, building connections, and could work something like this similarly in Clovis. So while sponsorships and partnerships, like Robin mentioned yesterday, partnerships are just invaluable. They're just one tool in the toolbox to make this event work. Communities large and small. Thanks again, Lisa, because thanks to our ongoing communication, give me the gift of reworking this so we can just set it up and get it so that there would be less stalls, and then you could just go off on the momentum, and the momentum can just build, and the community can come to rely on this consistent event. As they have here in Santa Fe, at least they know there's going to be a certain number of these events per year. Plus, the more regular these events are put on, the easier they are to do. And let me tell you, then you really start to have a whole lot more fun as well. Speaking of fun, another shout out to Sean O'Shea for having the smarts or the courage to bring me on as a consultant, because let's face it, like I know I'm a little out there, but as Robin mentioned yesterday, you pick people that are not the same as you to work with. And again, Sean knocks it right out of the park, because anyone that meets us can immediately sees our differences. Well, that could be why we complement each other so well. Again, thank you, Sean. Anyway, I love being able to lead some of the how to shape your story to engage and excite sessions within some of the New Mexico Main Street boot camps that were mentioned yesterday and accelerator programs like that he's collaborated with the EDs on. It's just so much fun for me as well. Connie, you rocked it. You're awesome over there. And so I'll share this picture again because this last round you can carry forward just on Tuesday night. And I mean, this is the best of all of the pictures. I think there's one where it's just all my nostrils, but it was funny because I shared the pictures with Connie later that night and she was like, this is just such a great example of how not to take a group photo. And I was like, you are so right. But we all had fun doing it. And that was also just part of the point. But like, I'm loving being able to share with these participants because, again, story is just the quickest, most effective way to create communication. So I want to be able to share some of the science with them so they can understand it's not just a feeling. Hearing a story actually creates this chemical reaction to the body. I want to also help them see that they can be their authentic selves while sharing their story and running their business. They can use pictures to help share their story. They can be funny, they can be vulnerable, show their passion, and use a conversational tone and say and present their product, service, or idea in a way that others might not expect. But being unconventional is actually a great way to hook attention and stand out in a crazy, busy, and often pretty boring world. And by delivering the content in a way to them that like just kind of also not only tells, but shows that they don't have to try to be something else. They can build a business they love, dancing to the beat of their own drum, like I obviously do, because Peter Gruber, as Connie mentioned yesterday, president, founder, Mandalay Entertainment, one of his best lines, in my opinion, simply put, if you can't tell it, you can't sell it. I should just mic drop now and just leave, but I'm not going to. I'm gonna I'll take you for a few more minutes. Okay, so in these sessions, I share short, simple stories from global brands a lot of us would recognize, but also from some entrepreneurs right here in New Mexico. So you can see a story of their own. It just doesn't have to be arduous and long or out of their reach. They can do this. And it's proven to be a wonderful way to help accelerator participants in communities, large and small, just many of whom have never started their own business, never participated in an accelerator or boot camp before, or considered how their own unique story can be an asset and a way to connect to their potential customers, raise capital, develop partnerships, drive sales, get press, and even recruit the types of employees that would be attached to their mission, style, and vision. And so when Kara was still up in Gallup last year, we did an extended What's Your Story workshop to create the About or Our Story content for their website, whether they had one running or not. And this was pretty fantastic. And we also covered adding sprinkles of themselves within their social media posts as people buy from people they like, people they can relate to, and people that make them feel good. So it's not just been wonderful to help these burgeoning business owners or the ones ready to take the leap to the next level, help them shape their story, but having firsthand knowledge of how Storytime had been working here in Santa Fe, Sean had the genius, again, thank you, Sean, to have me incorporate Storytime within some of these programs as well. So this way, participants get to hear the story and ask questions of one of their local entrepreneurs. We've now done this in Los Alamos. As Lauren mentioned, hi, Lauren and Ren, they're amazing. We're the local owners of Bathtub Row Brewing Co-op, shared some of their story to the diverse participants within that highly successful retail accelerator program in Los Alamos. And the first cohort of Tucumcari Forge's accelerator last summer, they liked hearing the story from their local owner of Blancos Creek Boutique, the wonderful Annie, that we're doing it again the second cohort. And next week, I'll be back there again, and we'll get to hear from Bob who's owned Bob's Upholstery for 50 plus years, as in the process of winding down his role, so his daughter can step up and continue the great work he started. So it's fun to watch folks in these New Mexico communities, populations as small as 5,000, connecting with and seeing themselves in a business owner from right there, who's been where they're at and has made it happen right there in their community. So, and it's also funny because I experienced the same thing in Santa Fe, where some of the local business owners can say something like, I'm not an entrepreneur, or what do I have to share? And so I say, if you run a business and have taken on any risks to do so, then you're an entrepreneur, because that's the boiled down dictionary definition for it. So usually that gets them okay. Then I make them feel comfortable with just emailing them a few questions that will help them jump off and get started. And then during story time, I'll always help them with some questions just to draw out information that might be useful to the participants if they got stuck. But this is the thing, no matter how even they were hesitant to do this, they're like, I don't know what I'm gonna like share. More often than not, once they get in the room with the participants, their own community members, they can just go on and on and on. Like they seem like they could go on for hours. You actually have to cut them off. The session's done, like you're in the parking lot, they're still talking. It's fantastic to see. So let's face it, there are oodles of entrepreneurs, wannapreneurs, and small business owners who'd love to have a community to connect with, just as there's loads of folks like you out there hungry for a way to truly engage with your communities and keep that engagement growing stronger and stronger as time goes on. And so like, also remember this, I started Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs as a complete outsider. I probably knew a dozen or so people in this community back then. So imagine if it were you or a partner organization, or you were partnering with someone in my shoes, like mingling and getting to know your community's entrepreneurs and business owners in the way that I have. So every week I have people just randomly, like I said, that's why I feel like somehow we're, people just find kick-ass entrepreneurs and email me questions about where to go for this resource, where to go for that, who should I talk to about this? And so I'm like this constant connector. Even in February, for whatever reason, I had 2 reporters reach out to me and where I would think they would go to the chamber or Office of Economic Development, but I think they're just simply finding kick-ass entrepreneurs. Again, it's kind of fun. So if my story says anything, by being the kick-ass person behind these type of story time events, you would just really become the absolute go-to in your community to connect people to resources without actively trying. I went from being that complete outsider. Now I'm like this trusted community ambassador, constant connector, and was even recognized as an eShip unsung hero of ecosystem building in 2020. So if I could do that, imagine what you can do. So here's another little side story for you. Fun fact, when I received the Unsung Hero nomination, I had to Google the word ecosystem builder, because while I was doing it, I had no idea what it was really. And I also didn't know that there was a community of ecosystem builders out there, and now I've since grown to love their ecosystem building podcasts, books, newsletter, conferences, and thanks Eric Wentz Whitmore. I know he was the one that gave me that nomination, so many of you know him. Thank you as well. Just a little fun side story for you there. Now I am finally gonna stop babbling. Maybe we'll get to take a longer break this time. But first, we're gonna go back to this quote because I love it. People will forget what you said, people forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel. Now, I know you're just incredibly hardworking, caring individual, overflowing plates of work, projects in progress, in the pipeline, or on your wish list, and creating community connection is just one part of your massive job. But just know that if Shauna or I can help in any way, please don't hesitate to reach out to us, because like all of the rest of the incredible revitalization specialists that are available to you, all we really want to do is just help as much as we can. And so I hope to see some of you in Virginia for the Main Street Now conference, where I'm going to be presenting a boiled down, possibly more conservative version of this, though I don't know. And also just thanks again so much, because thanks to Sean, Robin, Lisa, Mara, Connie, and Kira for encouraging me to apply because otherwise I wouldn't have. So thanks so much. And if there's any questions I can answer, I'll try. Oh, good. None? Okay. We ready to go?
I've got a question, if we can.
Sure.
Hi, Melanie. Awesome presentation. You've got me thinking about coming down from Taos to check one of these events out. They sound like lots of fun. This is something we should perhaps connect with offline about, but we have an organization here in Taos called the Taos Entrepreneur Network. And it sort of functions similar to what you're describing. But what, if any, advice would you have for making those things? I mean, to be perfectly honest, like the last couple of events they've had, it's all boomers and they're just not fun, and they don't really inspire anybody to come back. You see people show up once and they don't come again. So what kind of advice would you give to kind of giving something like that a shot in the arm, so to speak?
I would say that that's what you kind of have to give it a shot in the arm. I will tell you that that was pretty much what I was also experiencing in Santa Fe when I decided to start this year, because I mean, as many know, like Santa Fe is quite much an older community. And it was like wanting to draw out at least somewhat younger, and also have fun. And also one thing that I was really cognizant of, because I was going to some of these events where it seemed to divulge into some negativity pretty often or quickly. And I just didn't want anything to do with that whatsoever. So I would say, like, I'm willing to talk to you at any point further about this, but yeah. And that may be like part of too, why even for me, like with the kick-ass name, coming up with a name that's catchier or possibly younger people would attach to more. I know not everyone loves it, but I also am trying to attach to some younger folk. Like I want younger people to maybe think it's cool, just the name. Like if that works, like let's give it a go. Did that answer any of your question?
I think so. So it sounds like what you're saying is we just need to have you come up to Taos and help us with this.
No, well, okay. But the thing is, no matter what, like I couldn't be anywhere and you're the one in your community, but I could train you. I could totally train you or one of your community partners so you could work on this. And then you do Kick-Ass Entrepreneurs of Taos all by yourself.
Awesome.
That's
Thank
what
you.
The whole thing is. I would never be able to be you in your community.
Understood. Thank you, Melody. Awesome. Appreciate it.
Thanks.
I would like to just echo that there were lots of networking events in Santa Fe, like when I first got here too. And they all devolved into people just complaining about stuff. And but Mel was put together a really, I think, special package that's super positive. And so even when it gets like off the rails a little bit and people like want to complain, it gets righted pretty quickly. And it's really all about just supporting the person that's there, supporting people that are around you, and providing real positivity for all the people that are there. I think that's a real special equation that a lot of these things don't necessarily have.
I would comment on that, what Sean said, because I think that was one of the things too. Also, having a dual co-host with you is a great way to then take control of that conversation too and spin it to the way you want to use it. So that's why we kind of had some of those funny questions in there to ask people to kind of keep that conversation light and humorous, even though we want to hear about the challenges but maybe spin it to how they overcame those challenges. And, you know, one of the things Melanie and I talked about was that, you know, it doesn't always have to be all of your successful entrepreneurs, because there's a lot of failures out there too. And so one of the people that we're going to bring on is someone whose business failed in our community after 60 years of success, and then, you know, had to close up shop. And so he's going to be one of our speakers, and also just keeping those funny points. Like, you know, Eddie was hilarious with his, you know, hardest thing of entrepreneurs is spelling entrepreneurs. And I think our photographer told us about how one of her very first like long photo sessions, she had her zipper down the whole entire time and didn't realize it until like almost the end of her whole session. And so it's trying to get people to talk about those things that, you know, maybe they wouldn't really necessarily open up to say, and having a good co-host helps with that, just keeping that conversation in a positive direction.
Yeah, and I would say too that, you know, even, and I do, because I address this in the guidebook as far as like, how to even address people wanting to like speak up, by saying we have a policy of only our sponsors are allowed to speak, or that this is the storyteller's time. They came here to share. This is their venue. The storyteller does not have to be positive the whole time. Like, honestly, if they divulged into tears, that would be completely fine. But you don't want other community members kind of taking over. And I think that that's one thing that does make these events just more fun and comfortable for other people to attend. They're not having to worry about that aspect. Okay, should I just take over the whole rest of this conference? I'm kidding.
Well, I have a quick question of just about, and this might be like just kind of technical, but what do you see as the difference between someone standing up and giving a pitch, or someone standing up and telling their story?
Time is one of them. Story, you have quite a bit more time to share. Honestly, for me, even as an entrepreneur myself, like, if you say the word pitch, I get nervous. I get anxious. Like, it just makes me feel like I've got to be all this prepared. And a story makes it feel less pressure. I'm not sure if anyone else agrees with that.
The story's the ride. It's that emotional roller coaster, like the ups and downs of it.
Pitch is also, you're trying purposely to solicit some sort of response or buy-in, where with the story, you're not necessarily trying for that. You're just simply being yourself and sharing the story. Does that make any sense?
That's great. No, thank you. Are there any other questions? And throw it in the chat, or unmute yourself. No. Okay, great. Melanie, could you put or if you would be willing to put your email address in the chat,
I sure will.
just in case anybody else has a question. And we'll have a nice break to get make a sandwich or something. So you
Good.
come back prepared at 3 o'clock. So yeah, following this, we'll hear from Make Santa Fe and Santa Fe Business Incubator about their programs, and then we'll have closing remarks from Alex Horton from the International Districts Economic Development Organization in Albuquerque.